This was the plane that was supposed to save the company. Instead, it buried it. McDonnell Douglas had just watched the DC-10 torch their reputation. 3 crashes, hundreds dead, a name that used to mean trust. So they did what every wounded company does. They went back to the same airplane, stretched it, modernized it, and promised the world it was fixed. They called it the MD-11, the last roll of the dice from a 70-year-old American giant. It had one job: fly farther on less fuel than anything in its class and win back the airlines. Here's the problem. It couldn't do the one thing it promised. Within 5 years, the very airlines who ordered it walked away in public. And inside a decade, McDonnell Douglas didn't exist anymore. How does the airplane built to save you become the last nail in your coffin? Stay with me. Rewind to the late 1980s. McDonnell Douglas is desperate. The DC-10 is poison at the ticket counter. Airbus is rising in Europe. Boeing owns the long-haul market. Douglas needs a comeback, and they need it cheap. Building a brand new airliner costs 10 years and billions they don't have. So they reach for the same shortcut that almost killed them last time. Take the DC-10. Keep the bones, stretch it, bolt on modern engines, winglets, a glass cockpit, computers that let 2 pilots fly what used to need 3. On paper, it's brilliant. They promise a jet that flies 7,000 nautical miles on 1 tank, with fuel burn that beats everyone. Orders roll in. Singapore Airlines, American, 20 here, 20 there. But there's a number buried in the engineering reports that marketing won't say out loud. The math doesn't close. Here's the thing nobody tells you about promises in aviation. They're written before the plane ever flies. The MD-11 takes off for the first time on January 10th, 1990, and almost immediately, the test data comes back wrong. Remember that 7,000-mile range Douglas sold to the airlines? The real airplane can't hit it. To fly that far, it has to leave thousands of pounds of paying cargo on the ground, or it flies full and falls hundreds of miles short. And it drinks more fuel than the brochure ever admitted. Think about ordering a car rated for 40 miles a gallon, then discovering it does 30. Now imagine that car costs $100 million, and you bought 20 of them. That's the call airline executives were making across the world. And one of them was about to do something companies almost never do. Say it out loud, in public. That airline was Singapore Airlines. They'd ordered 20 MD-11s for their brutal long-haul routes that cross whole oceans without stopping. And the airplane simply couldn't reach. The range wasn't there. The economics weren't there. So Singapore did the unthinkable. They canceled. All 20. And they didn't slip quietly out the back door. They went straight to Airbus and bought the A340 instead, telling the world the MD-11 couldn't do the job. Picture that headline on every desk in Long Beach. Your flagship customer, the airline other airlines copy, publicly handing your savior jet back for a European rival. It's like a master chef serving a dish, and the most famous critic alive spitting it out at the table. But would you stake a whole company on a jet your best customer just returned? And the range problem wasn't even the dangerous one. To chase that fuel economy, the engineers had quietly done something a passenger jet is never supposed to be. To squeeze every drop of efficiency, Douglas shrank the tail. The horizontal stabilizer, the small wing at the back that keeps the nose steady, was made smaller than it should be. Less surface, less drag. Less fuel burned. They pushed the center of gravity further back, too. On a spreadsheet, it saves money. In the sky, it creates a monster. The MD-11 became what engineers call relaxed stability. In plain English, the airplane doesn't want to hold itself level. It's twitchy. Light on the controls, the way fighter jets are, not the way a packed airliner full of families ever should be. Where a normal jet settles down on its own, the MD-11 waits for the pilot to overcorrect. And on landing, that's deadly. The jet floats in fast, one slightly heavy input near the runway, and it bounces, pitches, and tries to fly away. Pilots gave it a grim nickname. And one morning in Hong Kong, the airplane proved exactly what that nickname meant. August 22nd, 1999. China Airlines Flight 642 comes into Hong Kong on the edge of a typhoon. Rain, gusting crosswind, 315 people on board. On the flare, just feet above the runway, the jet rolls right. It touches down hard on the right main gear, far harder than the airframe wants to take. An engine scrapes the pavement, and the right wing tears clean off. The MD-11 flips upside down, slides down the runway in a sheet of flame, and stops inverted. By the time the fire is out, 3 people are dead. 312 survive, hanging in their seatbelts in an upside-down cabin. Investigators pointed at the weather and the hard landing, but the questions kept circling back to that twitchy tail and how unforgiving this jet was in the exact moment a pilot needs forgiveness most. So why would anyone keep buying it at all?
The short answer is they mostly didn't. The MD-11 hit the market at the worst possible moment. Just as it arrived, a new idea was sweeping aviation. If a twin-engine jet could be trusted to cross an ocean on 2 engines, why pay to fuel and maintain 3? The Boeing 777 was on the way, and the math wasn't close. The MD-11 was born obsolete, a trijet in a world racing toward twins. Have you ever bought the last model of something right before everyone switched to the new kind? That sinking feeling, times $100 million a copy. The orders were a trickle, not a flood. And every MD-11 off the Long Beach line carried the same quiet verdict: too thirsty, too twitchy, too late. The savior wasn't saving anyone. It was bleeding the patient out.
Now zoom out, because here's what turns a bad airplane into the end of a company. McDonnell Douglas had bet the house on this jet. It was supposed to win back the reputation and keep them in the game against Boeing and Airbus. Instead, it sold in the low hundreds when it needed thousands. Just 200 were ever built. 200. For an airplane meant to carry an entire company on its back. The trust never came back. McDonnell Douglas, the firm that built half the airplanes that won wars and shrank oceans, had nothing left in the tank. And in 1997, the thing nobody thought possible happened. Boeing absorbed them whole. The name on the building came down. The company was gone. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. The MD-11 didn't die when McDonnell Douglas did. It got a second life nobody expected. Because for all its sins as a passenger jet, that big 3-engine body was a brilliant truck. Massive cargo hold, long legs when you're hauling boxes, not people. So while the airlines fled, the freight haulers moved in. FedEx bought them by the dozen. UPS too. Lufthansa Cargo flew them for decades. The same jet that couldn't satisfy a single airline's passengers spent 30 years moving the world's packages across oceans at night, long after the company that built it was gone. And there's one more twist. People love to blame the MD-11 for the deadliest crash in its history. Swiss Air 111, 229 souls lost in 1998. But that fire didn't start in the twitchy tail or the shrunken wing. It started in the wiring of the entertainment system. Its worst day wasn't even its fault. So which sin actually killed the company?
It wasn't really the range. It wasn't really the tail. Those were symptoms. The disease was a habit. Twice, McDonnell Douglas faced a hard, expensive moment. And twice, they reached for the cheap fix instead of the right one. With the DC-10, they buried a memo to dodge the redesign bill. With the MD-11, they shrank a tail and stretched an old jet to dodge the cost of building something new. Save money today, pay in trust tomorrow. And trust, once you spend it, never comes back. So how did Boeing, the giant that swallowed them, end up making the exact same mistake a generation later? That's a story for another video. Some planes carry passengers. Some carry the weight of a dying company. The MD-11 did both.